currently all seeing activity around the United States of America and around the entire world because of police violence. We want people to remember that police brutality is real. Police brutality has been happening for centuries, for generations in this country. Today we're going to have representatives of our volunteer legal team speak, some of our legal observers and medics that have been injured by police, and some of the local activists who've been on the streets with us from Friday, Saturday, Sunday and Monday. Michael.
Thank you very much. My name is Michael Cord. I'm one of the attorneys representing folks who were arrested in connection with the protesting. I'm going to start out by saying I condemn the rioting and the violence by the Philadelphia Police Department since 1979, when the U.S. Department of Justice filed the first prosecution against any city police department in America. Not cities in Mississippi, not cities in Alabama, not cities in Georgia, but the first federal prosecution for, quote, widespread and extreme police brutality was against the Philadelphia Police Department. If you're going to condemn 1 or 2 days of aberrational so-called violence, then you gotta condemn decades of systemic violence by the police department. Founding fathers of the United States of America talked about taxation without representation and took up arms against that. What we have today against black people and poor people is execution without justification. So if you support the founding fathers in their cry for or against taxation without representation, then you got to support the black activists and others for the execution without justification by the Philadelphia Police Department and police departments all across the country. What we've seen just recently with 1 or 2 executions is the system, is what goes on. I have much more to say, but we have other comments from other speakers. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
My name is Paul Hetznecker. I'm honored to be here with this coalition of lawyers, paralegals, and activists. In 1975, I marched in the street with an anti-racist coalition as a young teenager and experienced the brutality and witnessed the brutality of the Philadelphia Police Department under Mayor Rizzo. That extended throughout his reign through the time period in which he was mayor. There is a long, storied, and unfortunate, tragic history of police abuse in this city, as Michael Cord just mentioned. And this has gone on for decades. There is a culture of racism, institutional racism, in the Philadelphia Police Department, and it has existed for far too long. When there is a full-throated outcry for justice against injustice, we must recognize the First Amendment rights of those protesters who have taken the streets in expression of First Amendment rights, and not shot them with rubber bullets or canisters of tear gas, but recognize that in fact their right to protest is at the core of our democracy. That's right. When people protest against any particular issue, matter of social justice, they do so in the expression of freedom, in the cry for freedom, which is embodied in the First Amendment. Once you curtail First Amendment rights, once you undermine the rights of individuals to bring their voices of dissent to the centers of power, you threaten democracy. And what we saw these last 3 days, we saw the Philadelphia Police Department undermine First Amendment rights in a grotesque way, brutalizing protesters, peaceful protesters, who were a part of a long tradition of expressing voices of injustice, against injustice, voices for change, for social change, significant social change, being met with brutal force. It's unacceptable, it's outrageous, and we as lawyers representing individuals charged with offenses are going to stand in unison with them and unified against this outrageous conduct by the Philadelphia Police Department. An extension of a long legacy of violence against people in neighborhoods throughout this city, violence that has gone unheard and unrecognized. We have police-involved shootings in this city. We have names of individuals that have gone unmentioned. Dennis Plowden, killed by Philadelphia police 2 years ago. Tyrese Carlisle, killed by Philadelphia police 2 years ago. These are names that must echo in the minds of everyone in this region. It's not just one incident. It's a legacy, and people need to be heard. And the cry for justice is one that has resonated throughout this country and throughout this world. And it will continue in an effective way social justice. So I'm hopeful. I think we should all laud the efforts by those who are protesting peacefully in the streets of Philadelphia and say this is a beginning, a new dialogue in the quest for social justice. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Paul.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Kevin Mincy from Mincy Dispatch House. I'm honored to be a part of a group of lawyers who are protecting the First Amendment rights of these peaceful protesters. When I started in law school 20 years ago at Howard University School of Law, they taught us about being social engineers. When you see the president make a call for the military to come in and use the type of force that they have used on peaceful protesters, that's like a bat signal for the social engineers to come out and get to work. And so that's why I'm here. I know that's why these other lawyers are standing here with, and we have a tremendous group of lawyers who are not standing here, who are willing to sacrifice their time and their effort and their energy to defend the Constitution, the First Amendment, and to stand up for folks. I'm standing here to protect those who are bravely protesting, to protect the rights of people that look like me. And so it's not my job to go out and protest and be arrested. It's my job to defend their rights. That's what we're going to do and these lawyers are going to do. So I thank you guys for coming out and for supporting this effort to protect the rights of our people protesting citizens.
Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Marty Snyder from Law Offices of MJ Snyder, and I just want to explain a little bit about what the lawyers and the large coalition of lawyers are going to be doing. We're going to be representing juveniles, we're going to be representing adults, and anyone charged with a citation. That can include juveniles and adults, and we're going to be coordinating our efforts all together to work as a group to make sure that everyone has free representation after having exercised their First Amendment rights. This is a call to anyone who's been arrested to make sure that they connect with Up Against the Law Legal Collective, who does an amazing job on the ground, on the streets, and organizing everything. So please get in touch with them. Also, if you're in the public and you have videos or you have evidence or you've seen brutality, or if you've been brutalized and not arrested, we would also like to hear your voices and help organize you so that you can get your message out to everyone else. So we're also asking for that. And we'd also like to thank the bail funds. There are many bail funds in the city, but they were really instrumental in making sure that people aren't suffering in jail for having exercised their First Amendment rights. And our hearts go out to them, and we hope that they continue to get donations and that the public continues to work with them. So thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, Tori.
My name is Tori Smith, and I'm a legal observer with Up Against the Law Legal Collective. I've been a legal observer in this city for about 5 years. The actions of the Philadelphia Police Department, while totally familiar to thousands of Black Philadelphians throughout this country, a lot of people are seeing the mask come off of police violence here in the city. As a legal observer, I was assaulted by the city of Philadelphia Police. My fellow legal observer that was with me has a concussion currently and is still in recovery at home. The targeting of legal observers, journalists, and medics by the Philadelphia Police Department especially needs to stop now. Not yesterday, now.
Thank you.
My name is Nathaniel Miller. I'm also a legal observer with Up Against the Law. I've been legal observing in Philadelphia for over 10 years. I've been involved in social movements in the city for almost 20 years. What I saw on the streets on Monday with tanks, helicopters flying around, shooting tear gas on the protesters, police taking pot shots at protesters with rubber bullets, including myself, clearly marked legal observer, an aimed shot right here, big old bruise right here. 10 minutes later, splashed right in the face 4 times with pepper spray, point blank, also after identifying myself as a legal observer. This isn't new to communities of color in the city, but seeing the police use this mass violence on protesters simply exercising their First Amendment rights is something that I have never seen in 20 years participating in protests in the city. The police department, the mayor, they're on notice. They must stop immediately. They must cease all violence against those exercising their First Amendment rights and the legal observers and the medics that are there to support them. Thank you.
Journalist. Thank you. All right, Tarek.
Hi everyone, my name is Tarek. I'm not a lawyer. My brother's a lawyer. I've been nurse practitioner in
nice town. And as the healthcare providers, we stand in solidarity with those that are here in our city and our nation that are rising up to say to law enforcement, enough is enough. We've had enough of tolerating police brutality, police misconduct, and corruption of black and brown families. We've had enough of the brutality and the morbidity and corruption, especially when it comes to our black and brown families. We've had enough of accepting the racist, violent, bad apples that fester among the good cops in the police force. We stand in lockstep in the medical community with the protesters demanding police reform and the abolition of harmful tactics being used by protesters and the other protesters and lawyers that are here today. But today I'm here to call on the police and National Guard and whoever Donald Trump sends out, the Marines, the Army, Space Force, and tell them that they need to do their duty in protecting those who are protesting to keep them safe from COVID-19. Yesterday, I spent the afternoon in a nursing home testing residents, testing employees for COVID-19. Because I've seen what COVID-19 can do to patients. I've seen what that can do to a human body. Across the U.S., there's nearly 2 million Americans who have been affected by COVID-19, and over 110,000 Americans that have died in the last few months. Law enforcement must not forget when dealing with the protesters that we are in the midst of a deadly, once-in-a-century pandemic, one that sickened dozens of my patients, and all efforts to keep protesters safe must be employed. The other day, the sister of a nurse practitioner, an Inquirer reporter, wrote about her experience about being detained in a sweltering bus where people were packed in from law enforcement that was sweltering and unventilated. As a nurse, I'm calling on police and law enforcement to avoid forcing protesters into super spreader events, such as through tactics like peddling or other tactics.
Right.
Police and law enforcement have a duty to serve and protect, and they must ensure that if groups of protesters are detained, that they are not confined to small spaces, and that they are socially distant.
Yes.
We have seen video of police using tear gas on people like Nathaniel, a peaceful protester removing their face masks and spraying tear gas and other objects into their face. We know that tear gas, we know that mace can cause increased mucus production. It can cause coughing, it can cause sneezing, and this can increase the spread of the virus.
Right.
So as a Philadelphia healthcare provider, I'm calling on police and law enforcement to stop using noxious chemicals like tear gas and mace on protesters. Also, as Secretary of Health Rachel Levine and Dr. Fauci, wherever he is, have said, I wear a mask to protect you,
Right.
and you wear a mask to protect me. We are calling on police and National Guard and anyone else that comes to our city that's dealing with protesters to wear a mask at all times.
Yes.
Finally, I just want to say the healthcare providers, we enthusiastically stand with our members from Up Against the Law, the Real Justice Coalition, the Police Reform Working Group, Representative Rob and other colleagues. We will not tolerate the status quo. We are here because of the murder and cruel treatment of black and brown Americans by law enforcement that has terrorized our nation for over four centuries. And we are asking, and frankly, we expect our law enforcement to join us in our calls to keep our protesters safe and to work with our citizens to prevent the spread of COVID-19 in our great city. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tarek.
Hi, my name is Anna. I'm a part of Firefly Action Medic Collective, and also a nurse practitioner. And this is my name's Emily Snyder. I'm a Green Street medic and registered nurse. Firefly Action Medic Collective is a group of street medics working in conjunction with Black and Indigenous and queer medics throughout the city, in addition to other medics and healthcare workers throughout the city of Philadelphia. Street medics, the definition is we operate based on consent. We operate with the understanding of privilege, knowing that when you treat someone, they're a human first, and that's something that is obviously in opposition to how we're being treated and how to our patients and the protesters are being treated, and we stand against that completely. everything that we operate with our support, with other medics, with other healthcare workers, is that we care for people, number one, we meet them where they're at, and we want to build trust. And we hope to be supported in that work when we treat folks that are injured, when we treat that are getting pepper sprayed, when people that are getting shot with rubber bullets, which is very lethal. And instead of being supported by any form of governance, we're being attacked. And more and more folks will speak to that later. But it's definitely not okay. And who's being attacked more? Our bodies of color. It's all bodies, but definitely bodies of color. That's the history of our country. That's the history of the colonized state, and we stand against that. And we hope that other folks can support the medics, right, legal folks, any protesters that are out on the street, understanding that we are essential workers and our protesters are essential of being human beings, that they're humans that deserve to be respected as a human, like anyone should, and that's what the medics stand for. So thank you.
Thank you.
My name's Emily Sider. I'm a registered nurse and street medic who's working with the same effort. I wanted to be really clear about the way that medics have been targeted. And I want to be clear about how lethal these so-called safer or less lethal weapons can be. So I was with a group of medics on Sunday night on 52nd and Chestnut. It was a calm moment. There wasn't anything that could possibly be perceived as threatening, but yet we were shot out with bullets. You can see the evidence right here. This was actually the canister, so a lot of times they come in a canister, and the canister is supposed to hit the ground and explode, spraying the bullets up in the air. But the canister, as you can see really clearly, is what hit my leg and then exploded, hitting medics and other people standing around. So if this had hit a couple inches lower, it would have destroyed my knee, it could destroy someone's eye, it could kill someone. So when we talk about what rubber bullets are, or the possibly dangerous effects of tear gas, these are really serious weapons the police are using, and they are unacceptable in any context. And so I want to be clear about that, and that, as Amna said, that we are essential workers. We are out there to support protesters and community members who have been targeted. Because, of course, it's not just the protesters, it's people who are walking home from work, it's people sitting on their porch or trying to go to the store. So these weapons are never acceptable, and we need to understand how we feel. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Erica Almiron. I've been a social justice activist and organizer for the last 20 years here in Philadelphia. I am the daughter of immigrants. My family is from Paraguay. They fled a dictatorship. And I just want to let everybody know that my father calls me now every night in a panic because he knows that what he's seeing on the streets right now are things that he vastly remembers as a child.
Yes.
At the age of 5, I watched my father run home scared from a work raid when ICE jumped into his workplace and he jumped out of a window. At the age of 9, I saw somebody get killed on my block. My father ran me into the house and he told me that I was not allowed to talk to police because they are not our friends. And I didn't understand it at the time, but I understood it as an adult. At the age of 16, I lost a good friend who was shot in the back by police in Norristown, Pennsylvania, as he was running. At the age of 21, I had guns pulled on myself and my boyfriend in Germantown, simply for sitting in the park and reading a newspaper. At the age of 25, my uncle was sent to prison for 13 years and died in Graterford. At the age of 32, I was the victim of rape, and I did not go to the police for the reasons that many women understand.
Right.
And at the age of 37, I was illegally detained on the side of the road with some friends for over an hour and was accused of cartelling drugs. The reason I say all that is because for Latinos, this is also an issue that is vitally important, to be standing next and shoulder to shoulder with Black communities as we fight for justice, but this is personal too. So this is about making sure that our communities understand that. For 20 years, I have fought with women, with children, with families to decarcerate the city, to ensure that ICE isn't in this city, and to defund the police. And
Yes.
that is the rallying cry right now. In the last 3 months, we have seen a pandemic hit. and the city of Philadelphia has been ravaged by it. For years, we have seen disinvestment in Black and Latino communities. In the last 3 years, gasoline was poured on it. Through the pandemic, with over 20% unemployment rates, we have seen people struggling to put food on the table. We have seen lots of issues where our schools are going to be dismantled because of it.
Yes.
And then, as this resistance rose up, the police and those empowered lit a match
Right.
on that gasoline. And that is the thing that is the most disturbing. We must allow people to rise up and resist an institution that has historically oppressed them, brutalized them, and murdered them. So I stand here. I have been doing lots of national work with Mi Gente as somebody who says that we must echo the call of the movement for Black lives to defund the police immediately, and in this time prioritize the relief of our people during this pandemic
Yes.
over the policing of our city. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Erica.
Peace all. What's up? My name is Ant Smith from Philly Real Justice. I come here as a member of Philly Real Justice and in communication with the MOVE family, the Abolitionist Law Center, the Human Rights Coalition, and a bunch of other different organizations to lift up some demands. I was one of the many people in West Philly that were arrested by the police initially on these so-called riot charges, destruction of property charges, and then it ended up being a curfew violation charge. And we see how arbitrarily the state is inputting all of these things in to sort of harass community members. And this is not in a city where there are 3,000, 4,000 people. This is in West Philly. It was about 25 people outside.
Right.
I was arrested along with some brother that was just walking by randomly listening to music. And so we have Philly Real Justice has always questioned the meaning and the use of the state. And I want to lift up some demands that some of the organizations that I just named has put out. Number one, the city council members have to say no to this budget increase for the police.
Yes.
That's the primary thing, because all of the other demands I want to name are directly intertwined with the amount of money that the state is willing to give the police, even though there's no data, there's no grounded data that says the police are useful, neither in the streets or in schools. There is no empirical data that says the police are actively helping. But no matter what happens, the state never has money for any other portion of funding that communities need, but they always got the money for police. So we demand that the police not only say no to this budget increase, but immediately defund the police and use those resources to fund community programs like schools. We got asbestos problems, right? We always talking about we can't get enough teachers in these schools, and for some reason the state is like, I'm sorry, we don't have it right now, right? But the police ask for $1 million here, $1 million here, and they get new bikes, new motorcycles, new cars, bulletproof vests, guns, yada yada. So either the state has the money or they don't. And I'm not buying this whole state doesn't have the resources thing. They have the resources. It needs to be relocated into communities that need it. That is a priority. The second one is for our folks behind the walls. We demand an immediate release of our folks behind the walls.
Yes.
They are the most at risk from dying from COVID-19. They are a vulnerable population. And specifically, of all our folks behind the walls are political prisoners who have been in prison for longer than I've been alive. Members like Mamiya Abu-Jamal and Russell Schultz need to be released from prison immediately. Those are very high priorities because these folks have been in prison longer than I've been alive, and the state has already tried to kill Mamiya, right, through things like hepatitis C. So we see that the state will work in ways that don't directly look like a police killing you to murder some of our folks. So, when we think about police abolition, when we bring up the idea of police abolition, you can think about it however you want, but all we are doing is identifying the idea that police are essentially useless. Police have to get out of schools, and those resources can go to things that would better benefit students, community centers, LGBTQ centers, all of these things that people legitimately really need, and they keep going to the police. So, Philly Real Justice, the MOVE family, Abolitionist Law Center, Human Rights Coalition, we will set out a list of demands. We are asking everybody to join in on those demands. and immediately demand the defunding of the police and the state. Because right now I have a bunch of National Guard members on me, and I don't see any people they're defending. I see them defending other police. So I'm really confused about this idea that they're serving and protecting. All right. So one more time, the demands are going out. I really recommend everybody sign on to those. We see that the demands around the country are coming into place. And however you feel about the uprising, I'm 100% supporting of the uprising, because I've seen more support and direct, tangible things that came out of the uprising than I've seen in my entire life of organizing. Right? We know that the Mayor Kinney has been BSing us on the Frank Rizzo statue. That came out around 3 days after the uprising. All police propaganda has to go. All of these pigs, murals, and all that, it has to go. Right? If it does not, if there is no data from any community members that says this is important and the community needs it, defund it immediately. We're talking about the police, and put it into the communities that really need it. And I'm done. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Aunt.
We have all our speakers. I'm just going to actually refer to people if anybody has any questions.
Has anyone? I'm sorry.
Sorry,
Go ahead.
off the first one. No, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just going to ask: has anyone noticed officers either not with? Has anyone noticed who has been out there? Noticed officers without either name badges or blocking their name tags? And why?
They
Can you
blocked
speak to
them?
why is that important?
Okay. They have been blocking their badge numbers with tape a lot. They were also wearing the little black bands around the badges. I think that delineates like a police member having died. But they were also using it to pull it down over their actual badge number. They were refusing to give people their badge numbers, and technically that's something that police officers should do. But it's been common practice. The lieutenants that you see in white shirts, captains, PPD officers, they've all been doing it.
I have some questions about those. Like,
Yeah,
legal.
I don't know if this is National Guard. They wearing name tags either?
Yeah.
There's no identifier for them. We have no idea who they are. Yeah.
Do you see any name tags? If anything happened with one of these officers in National Guard, would you have any way to report who that is?
I see it right now.
I think he's asking you the question.
I don't know. I'm just.
But yeah.
Okay, case in point.
Charges being locked against protesters. What kinds of charges are they facing?
Okay. So, sorry, again, I'm Marnie Snyder. We've seen charges for burglary. We've seen charges for aggravated assault against police. A ton of citations for curfew and for other things, and we're still going through them. There are so many hundreds of arrests and citations that we're still processing them today, despite having some things in our hands over those days. So our main goal was to get people out of custody to make sure that they weren't serving jail time for exercising their First Amendment rights. And now we're going to be going through the cases. There are also probably people out there who have not yet contacted Up Against the Law Legal Collective. And so we're doing our best to identify every arrest and try to figure out what kind of falls under the umbrella of what we're willing to handle. And we'd love to hear from people so that we can know that you were out there and that there's someone that needs representation and we can help.
How many people are still in jail?
I think that, do you have any numbers? I'm sorry.
We don't have exact numbers at this point. What we do know is that, as Marnie said, there are about 486 citations filed, both combination civil citations, which reflect the charge from a Philadelphia ordinance which was passed in 2016 in advance of the DNC that really incorporated 3 state statutes: disorderly conduct, failure to disperse, and obstruction of highway. They made that, they decriminalized that, and made it an ordinance with a civil fine. That, in conjunction with the curfew violations, are about 486. As for the criminal charges, as Marty said, there are burglary charges. Numerous burglary charges over the course of days. We're going through those. We have some charges related to theft. We have some vandalism charges. And as Marty said, some aggravated assault on police charges. The number of people that are actually in jail, we're going through that now. We're trying to figure that out. The arraignments are coming through. The arraignments were delayed for a little while because of the volume. So we'll have those numbers probably later through tomorrow or something.
Paul, what's the contact information for lawyers and up against the
Thank
So
you.
we should have that,
Thank you.
Tanya.
Okay, so it is up against the law, LC, all one word, at gmail.com. The phone number is 484-758-0388. You can also find us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. We are on social media. I do not have the number on my body right now.
Yeah, so,
Oh, yeah. You might want to stay there.
it's a question.
How many people have been released so far? How many people have got it?
Hundreds have been released. Again, there was initially, as I said, there were 86 citations initially. There's probably more than that. They were arrested. They were arrested and then released from either the 22nd district or other police districts. For those who had to go through arraignment charged criminally, most of those cases have been released through ROR. So they've been released on their own recognizance with no bail to post. The majority of those cases. So again, I can't give you the number of those that have been detained based on bail, or those that actually have bail levied against them and which was posted. We don't have those exact numbers yet, so I don't want to forecast it. It's a great question. Those were civil citations. So that's correct. They did not. They were not processed criminally. They were issued a civil citation. So in the past, what had happened throughout the course of my career in representing pro bono representation of protesters is typically the police would charge disorderly conduct or failure to disperse or obstruction of highway in those protests. In 2016, City Council put together an ordinance to decriminalize those in advance of the Democratic National Convention, so that there were about 168 to 170 people charged with those civil citations. There was not one state criminal charge levied during the DNC. There were 11 charged federally, and those were resolved in federal court. But here, what we've had is something very different. We have now, the first night were 43 burglaries, the second night were about 52 burglary charges. And again, I don't know over the 4 nights how many at this point, but we'll get those numbers later.
May I real quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
One of the things that you need to remember about the civil citations, though, are that those people were taken away from where they were standing. Their freedoms were taken for a period of time. Some were brutalized by police and moved to other locations where they were not properly given PPE, they were not social distancing, and they were held for many hours. Okay, so, were they held? There were various
Unventilated buses.
Yeah, so 22nd primarily, but sometimes just sitting in a bus outside the 22nd.
Unventilated, no windows,
Right.
no airflow.
And those people could be held for hours. So people that were arrested were held anywhere from 12 to 24 hours. But those people were not just handed a citation on the street. You cannot picture that. You have to understand that they were taken away from their family and friends where they were, and they were at risk of contracting COVID-19, and they were held for many hours before they were left. And they are not people that didn't walk away with bruises. They just didn't walk away from criminal charges.
Have they responded to have the police responded to them being kept on these buses?
Do you mean as in regards to like why that was the policy that day or anything like that? No, not directly to us.
All right, my second question, whoever can answer it. Have you all been measuring how many African Americans have been arrested, or the percentage and the number?
There have been so many arrests that honestly, right now, our focus has been on getting people out of custody and making sure people don't go to state prison. We haven't had time to correlate any of those. What I will tell you though is that lots and lots of injuries. We have phone calls from a ton of parents in West Philly who had to bring their kids to hospital after they were tear gassed, some of which were only 8 and 9 years old. So there are overwhelming numbers, and what I would say to that also is that we know that law enforcement and the state target black and brown bodies. So I would think that just because of the historical nature and institutional nature of this country that we probably might see large representation.
So anybody arrested on behalf of these protests can be assisted by you all for free?
Yes.
Roughly how many attorneys are part of that collective?
So we have right now approximately 20 lawyers that have volunteered. very experienced trial lawyers with criminal experience, and we expect to expand that depending upon the number of cases that we take. We have to sift through these cases. It's going to take several days to do so. We're in the process of doing, as Marnie said, we're in the process of doing that over the next couple of days. So we should have a list of all the lawyers that are volunteering their services and giving their time for the social justice cause.
How would, like from a legal perspective, I'm curious how handling, if you're expecting differences handling these cases versus handling, previous large protests and a lot of
Do it again, Matt.
I'm curious how if you're anticipating like legal differences.
Well, there's a significant difference, as was mentioned before. As Marnie said, just because people issued citations doesn't mean we're not going to challenge the constitutionality of that detention, of those arrests, and those citations. But primarily, what we have is criminal charges levied against dozens and dozens and dozens of individuals: burglary charges, vandalism charges, theft charges, aggravated assault charges, and those are going to be handled by very experienced criminal defense attorneys who have committed themselves to this work. And we will bring to bear all of their experience and their level of effort in conjunction with the Public Defender's Office to give the best possible representation to everyone charged with offense stemming from these protests.
Do you expect, one more question. Do you expect any differences, with the new, well, it's not new anymore, but the district attorney administration, had represented protesters in certain instances? I'm just curious if you're expecting any differences, you're expecting the different legal.
Mr. Krasner and I represented protesters all of our careers. We did it together in conjunction with one another. We also did it separately. But as I told Larry, when he became DA, he is the chief law enforcement officer of the city of Philadelphia, and all defense attorneys stand, as Charles Ogletree would say, as the last sentinels of the Constitution. We're here to hold everyone accountable. We're here to hold accountable the police. We're here to hold accountable the district attorney's office in their charging and their efforts to prosecute people. And so that's my statement regarding this. Now, having said that, I believe that Mr. Krasner, knowing him as well as I do, I think that he is a principled individual, and he will approach this in a principled manner. But that doesn't mean we're not going to have significant political and policy and legal disagreements over these cases. I anticipate.
That's it. We have two questions. One is regarding step control of Western police in the area was shutting off all transportation within the perimeter of what they consider Central City. That's one. The other is the attacks on media that we're hearing more and more reports of. My husband is a progressive journalist. He had a rubber bullet shot directly at his camera, injured his finger, and broke his camera the other Monday. Can they also file complaints?
Yes, they can. And let me just say this: this is something that I've also been involved in as representing journalists. The First Amendment not only protects the rights of protesters to voice their concerns over issues of social justice, but it also protects the press from disseminating misinformation. And the assaults on the press are also assaults on the First Amendment, and they're fundamental to our democracy. So if we have that kind of threat to democracy, when the press is trying to report on and publicize police abuse of excessive force or extensive police state power as represented by the emergency declaration and bringing National Guard in, if the press is thwarted in their effort, we undermine our democracy in a very fundamental way. So yes, their complaints should be heard, their voices should be heard, and their claims should be raised.
Oh yeah. Does anybody have one? Does anybody want to comment? I don't know anything about TV. I mean, the only thing I would say about SEPTA is that in other cities, police unions refuse to cooperate with the state in busing prisoners and busing police into areas. It is upsetting and probably not surprising that SEPTA continues to facilitate the oppression of the Philadelphia Police
Yes.
Department.
Yes.
I think that's it, right?
A throwback. Yeah. Well, I'm sure. Yeah.
I think fax is a, I know some
We are
like
done.
fax is like, we'll get you like metro fax.